The essential lesson of the Yoga Vasishtha, in fact of all of Vedanta, all of Hindu wisdom, is that of expansion of consciousness. And what does it teach us? The Yoga Vasishtha tells us that the expansion of consciousness happens as a result of love. Happens as a result of that quality of love which you feel. It could be love for the higher, it could be love for existence, it could be love for a greater truth. Essentially, the quality of love itself is what needs to be cultivated within us. That brings purity, that brings clarity, that brings higher energy. So expansion of consciousness is the very key to Hindu wisdom. It is the very key to Vedantic wisdom. It is at the heart of all meditativeness. Being watchful, being vigilant, but through that quality of love nurtured within your heart. Now, expansion of consciousness means that the world as you know it disappears, in the sense that the boundaries disappear and the world vision expands. So really it means coming into a contact with a higher reality. And that higher reality is not necessarily outside of you, no. The higher reality within yourself too. That needs to be contacted. That is what you need to explode your energy into. When you do that, true knowledge becomes yours, wisdom becomes yours, joy becomes yours, luminous light of spirituality becomes yours, and you become immensely blissful. So the whole key is to live sensitively. The whole key is to live in such a daring quality of being that nothing can make you afraid. So life itself stops becoming inimical to you. You know you cannot be harmed at the level of spirit. You know yourself to be spirit. And through that comes about a natural expansion of life, a natural expansion into what you might call God consciousness. Now, God is not so important when it comes to the Vedanta, when it comes to the Yoga Vasishtha. God is another name for the entirety of existence. It does not refer to a person in the way that Abrahamic religions may refer to God. No, in the Vedantic point of view, in the Yoga Vasishtha, God is more a quality of existence. God is more the quality of godliness itself, running through every fragment, running through every little microcosm within existence. That is the essential understanding of God. So life's joy itself is the quality of godliness, and through that you come to a greater energy of yourself. It's all about release into a higher energy. It's all about a catharsis of all that you know yourself to be, the conditioned being that we know ourselves to be, and coming to a realization beyond that. So in a way, the whole process of Vedanta is destroying your previous understanding, destroying your previous worldview of life, and taking you into a situation where you can have a fresh encounter with life itself, a fresh dialogue with life itself, knowing that it is part of something far greater, far higher. So it's the beginning of a new vision in life, is what expansion of consciousness means. Disconnected from what you have known, disconnected from the conditioned being of the mind. You see, truth is complex. There is wholeness of truth, there is absoluteness of truth, and there is relative truth. Vedanta says that we are stuck in relative truth to such an extent that we cannot see the greater vistas of truth. And the process in the Yoga Vasishtha is about moving towards the greater truth. And truth not only as how we know it to be in science, objective truth. No. It's truth realized through love, truth realized through bliss, truth realized through joy, truth realized through meditativeness. So even closing one's eyes, one can come into a deeper contact through one's own bliss, through one's own feeling of grace and beauty. One can come into a contact with the entirety of higher truth. In this way, Vedanta is extremely liberating. It tells you that you have to stop being stubborn, rigid in your worldview. You have to become liquid in your worldview. You have to become such that you are transcending the limits of yourselves again and again. You lose the boundaries of yourself. The boundary between lover and loved is to be removed. And the eternal relationship between man and the divine is likened to that of the lover and the loved. All our beliefs are boundaries. All our thoughts are boundaries which keep us from the higher. Through dissolving those, we come to a feeling of catharsis. Through dissolving those, we come to the more authentic realization that truly in the material sphere we are beggars, but in the spiritual sphere all can be ours. If only we embrace it with the quality of spontaneous, joyful energy within yourself, then you move towards a natural realization of your inner sources of energy, your higher sources of energy. And that is extremely fulfilling. And that is the only commandment really which Vedanta tells us to do. That is the only commandment which the Yogavasistha in a way tells us to do. Embrace that which is the highest in you. You see, if you look at man at a physiological level, he is a very small creature. But if you look at the man in a spiritual level, then he is an unlimited being. And that is the Vedantic vision, that your energy in the spiritual plane is infinite. And because your energy in the spiritual plane is infinite, is how you can meet the energy of the infinite itself. So your freedom into a higher energy of realization is what is needed, and that comes about through spiritual freedom. You see, the concept of spiritual freedom is very important when it comes to Vedanta, when it comes to Hindu wisdom, when it comes to the Yogavasistha Maharamayan. You are to reach to the utmost peaks of consciousness. You are to ascend the summit of consciousness. And to do that requires that you leave behind all the baggage of your thoughts about the past, all the knowledge that you have acquired and so on. That just stops you from making that climb to the higher peaks of realization. To reach that mountaintop, you have to leave all your luggage behind. You have to go as light as possible. And that is the attitude that the Yogavasistha recommends. It says that we are the greatest enemies of ourselves because we create boundaries around ourselves. That is the most damaging thing that we can do to ourselves. That prevents the true spirit of ourselves to shine through in whatever we do. That prevents the true happiness of ourselves to take birth through whatever we do. You see, we appear small. If we look at ourselves as a mind-body-spirit, as a mind-body complex, we appear small. The moment we add the third element, the element of spirit, you appear to be far larger, far richer than you would have ever thought yourself to be. And that is the utmost transformation that is needed. That is the only transformation that is needed. That is the way to move to higher intelligence. That is the way to move to higher prayer, higher understanding of yourself and of life itself. Human will is not the point. You see, there's so many books on self-help, self-psychology, having greater willpower, to be the ability to think positively and so on. But the Vedantic vision, the vision of the Yoga Vasishtha, goes beyond that. It says all this is part of psychology. All this is part of the mind. You don't need to dwell on the mind. Realize yourself as an unlimited spirit. Realize yourself as an unlimited, expansive, and ever-expanding consciousness. And these psychological virtues will spontaneously happen to you. If at the level of spiritual consciousness you expand, then at a psychological level too you become strengthened. Then you'd not have to worry about thinking positively and so on. No, you become rooted in life, in existence itself, and through that your entire psycho-spiritual complex goes through a great revolution. Your heart and mind come into a flow that is truly powerful, that is river-like, which allows you to meet the natural potential realization of yourself. You are able to move towards the ocean of your destiny. You're able to utilize your energy into being channeled into your highest calling, and that is essentially what is needed for higher living. That is essentially what is needed for quality living. That is essentially what is needed for infinite living. You see, the Yoga Vasishtha is very foundational. Not only does it address the spiritual reality of life, but it talks about a psychological revolution that we are to create within ourselves. But that happens only through expansion of consciousness. That happens by a greater awareness of existence's unlimitedness. Realize that at a spiritual level, you are infallible. At a physical level, we are all fallible. Life is, in a way, futile. We live and we die. But at a spiritual level, we are unlimited, infallible. We are this great mass of spiritual energy that is truly a reflection of the highest energy in existence. Once you know yourself to be of this great energy, then you find that the consciousness of your being expands in a very blissful manner. Then you find that you're able to go naturally into the higher domains of meditation and so on. Then you find that you're capable of a tremendous bliss, a tremendous nobility of heart and mind. So essentially, it's all about turning your energy inwards. Turn your spiritual energy inwards within you, and then you're able to work on expanding it. Don't waste time in surface thoughts, in grappling with your thoughts and so on. The mind is a repetitive mechanism. The Yoga Vasishtha says that the mind is almost like an automaton, a constant repeater of thought patterns. Don't believe that to be a higher reality. The true possibility of yourself happens when you unblock your heart and mind. When you unblock it by realizing that they are not representative of your higher self. Your feelings are there, your thoughts are there. They seem like reality to you, but beyond their reality is a reality within which you are pure consciousness. Realize yourself to be of that pure consciousness alone. Then you find that unhappiness disappears from your life. Because then you realize that there's nothing ultimately to be unhappy about, to be sorrowful about. You are part of this immense existence. You are joined in consciousness to the greatest bliss possible. There is no need for your mind to go around and around in thoughts of anxiety and sorrow. Leap out from the circumference of thoughts and go to the very center of your being. Within that center is the power of expansivity. Great truth is within you. As Jesus says, the kingdom of God is within you. As Gautam Buddha says, the ultimate Buddha is within you. You are the ultimate Buddha. Knowing all this, says Vedanta, liberate yourself from anguish, liberate yourself from fear. You see, one of the most pernicious things in life is the fear of what will happen tomorrow. And Vedanta addressed this in a very dynamic manner. It says that the innermost core of your being, there is absolutely a space of fearlessness. There is absolutely a space of great courage. You have the courage of the greatest warrior. You just have to realize that you are as capable as the highest warrior of courage. Most people don't even realize that they're capable of great courage, and they feel powerless, hopeless in life. In other words, we don't realize our own strength. Why? Because we are not looking at the substratum, the foundation of our being, which is the expanded consciousness. We look at only our psychological thoughts, our emotions, our feelings, and we identify with these emotions and these thoughts and feelings. And in the face of them, we feel fearful. If you realize that the supreme being, the supreme self is within you and is part and parcel of you, then there's absolutely no need to feel afraid. There is absolutely no need to feel anything less than courageous. Then you find that your consciousness is capable of moving towards the highest heights, is capable of moving towards the highest clarity. What we have to drop is judgment about ourselves. We keep judging ourselves through our thoughts, through our feelings, and that makes us go deeper and deeper into a morass of hopelessness, into a morass of fear, and so on. Vedanta says, shake yourself out of this. Realize that you are part of the higher reality. Realize that your ego is nothing. Your ego is just a creation of your thoughts. And then you move towards worship. Then your whole life becomes a daring, courageous journey of worship, of prayer, of true devotion, true quality. Live a fearless life, says Vedanta. Live a fearless life, says the Yogavasistha. And when you realize yourself to be of this higher nature, you become suddenly relaxed. The real being within you starts flowing. The real energy within you starts flowing with a great effortlessness. You stop being frightened of anything. You enjoy the deeper silences of your being. You enjoy the higher realization of your consciousness. You expand more and more. Your consciousness moves from feeling small to feeling vast. You exemplify that spirit of the Upanishads which says, Charayavati, Charayavati, walk on with bliss, joy, consciousness. Have a little childishness in you. Don't get bounded by your knowledge. You are an absolutely unique being. There is no need for you to be like anybody else. You don't need to be a follower. Each person is born a leader, but very few people realize themselves to be. The whole process of spiritual realization, the whole process of sadhana is one where you keep on expanding your consciousness. That is the only true sadhana. That is the only true spiritual exercise that is needed. Understand this. The very basis of sadhana is expansion of consciousness. It has got nothing to do with rituals and so on. Those are just excuses for people who don't want to expand their consciousness, keeping themselves busy in mundane activities. So in a way, rituals are really mundane activities which take us away from the true spiritual discipline of consciousness expansion. Your whole job is to make your inner being grow more and more to a degree where it is able to encompass the vaster truth of things. And that's the beauty about consciousness. It is ever elastic. It is ever elastic enough to expand to the highest reaches, the broadest reaches of being. It has no limits. In fact, the Yoga Vasishtha is very clear about it. It says very clearly that if there's one thing in the human being which has no limit, that is the ability to expand in consciousness. And expansion takes you away from any narrowness in thought. You see, why have people become more and more narrow in thought? Why have people become more and more mob-oriented instead of being more enlightened in this age when knowledge and information is more easily accessible? It is simply because we are caught up in knowledge. Knowledge itself has become the problem. Knowledge itself creates its great boundaries of ideas. So the problem lies therein, and Vedanta is very clear. It says, cut out this very root and then you are free. Then you have the courage to move on. You see, the problem is knowledge sometimes keeps us very afraid, which is why the great warriors on the battlefield, you'll find that they have a quality of not being encumbered by too much knowledge. Their ability to break free from the repetitive thought patterns. Only if you break free of repetitive thought patterns can you have raw courage in your heart. That has its own beauty. So you'll see some very courageous people. Then they're people who don't get caught up in thoughts too much. They have a very open-hearted and open-minded way of going into things. People we might call mavericks, people we might call dynamic beings. They move into things with a receptive mind. They move into things with an open mind. And that is real wisdom from the Vedanta aspect too. Vedanta says, the bridge between you and supreme truth is to be comprised of balance. You see, have you ever walked across a rope bridge? Between mountain passes, you'll find such bridges where you have to balance yourself. You have to watch your step. But watching your step does not mean that you walk with less courage. No. Walking in balance means that you feel an inward harmony. There's no fear, but there's a certain watchfulness, there's a certain alertness. And that alertness is the very essence of the Yoga Vasishtha. It implies an inward alertness. And that is the whole basis of Vedanta, inward alertness. That is the whole quality Vedanta says wants to instill within you. Unconditional watchfulness, the unconditional ability to be a witness. Not to function out of the ego, because the ego clouds our vision. The ego does not allow you to be a complete witness, no. Don't think you are superior, don't think you are inferior, drop all that. Just concentrate on walking the bridge. And that alertness itself fills you, imbues you with a great consciousness, a great trust in life. And through that trust in life, your ability to expand your consciousness grows into different dimensions. You see, why can't most people expand their consciousness? They're not trusting enough. They're not trusting enough that they should expand. They remain comfortable within their so-called comfort zones. And that never radically transforms us. That never takes us beyond ourselves into more abundant living. More abundant living is the summum bonum, the objective of Vedanta. It is the goal of being. It is the whole goal of potential realization. So, it is something which happens when within you a sense of harmony spreads. When within you this sense of harmony itself creates a feeling of meditativeness. Normally we think that meditation is something which we should do in a particular posture, sitting down and so on, with a mantra and so on. But from the Vedanta point of view, such meditation is actually superfluous. Life itself is to be a meditation. You are existing in this beautiful temple called Earth. The whole sky is available to you. Why do you restrict yourself to certain rituals? You see, Vedanta has two parts. One is the Karma Kanda and one is the Jnana Kanda. The Karma Kanda means the ritualistic part of it. The Jnana Kanda is what the Yogavasistha deals with, and all of Advaita Vedanta deals with. It talks about our potentiality to expand. It is not so much about using rituals for it, but rather it is the very idea of expansion, which corresponds to the highest vibe of intelligence within us. Vedanta says intelligence means expansion. And the very thrill of expansion is its own reward, is its own ecstasy. Expansion creates wonder of being. It creates a dance within you. It connects you deeper and deeper to the all-encompassing truth. And eventually it fills you with an all-fulfilling strength as well. You see, most of the time we're using a very limited energy source. We think we are body and mind, and we utilize that energy to do whatever we have to in our lives. But Vedanta says the moment you go into realizing that spirit and soul is your essential nature, then suddenly you find that the very source energy of that higher spiritual power becomes available to you. You find that you are not of a very tiny strength, rather you are of an infinite strength. So the idea opens up the doorway for you. The idea of being infinite opens up the windows of opportunity for you, and essentially tells you that your own energy is greater than you ever imagined. So it takes you away from repression of your essential nature into an exploration of your own nature. You see, the worst thing that can happen to us is that we repress our innermost energy. Why is our innermost energy repressed? It's repressed because of the conditioning that we go through. Societal conditioning, educational conditioning, parental conditioning, so many types of conditionings. Now, the whole idea of Vedanta is that you're to uncoil yourself from this conditioned experience of life. You're to uncoil yourself from this burdened feeling of life and come to the essential prana, the essential energy centers of yourself. You are a bundle of energy. It's all about release of that energy which really matters. And release implies expansiveness. And expansion at the very fundamental level of understanding that you have repressed your greater energies. The moment you realize this, then comes about the ability for you to go in and tap those energy sources which have been lying dormant. It's like digging a well. You see? The sources of water are there. It's up to you to do the digging. So Vedanta, the Yogavasistha, is like that. It teaches you how to dig the well. Once you dig the well, you come upon your own sources of water. The well comes about on its own. Yes, you have to make the effort to dig, but the effort to dig is really, the idea needs to be there that yes, if I dig deeper, the water will be available to me. So it all begins with the idea. It all begins with this very seed that the consciousness within you is available. So you have to expand yourself to a certain degree where the clarity of this vision is attained, where your self-image is not confined to what you believe is you, to the limited self that you believe you are. Go beyond all limitation. Realize that you are comprised essentially of a divine purity, of immense consciousness, and then you'll find all the contradictions in your life melting away. You'll find that at your subconscious and unconscious level, there's so much you have repressed because of your fears and so on, that really you've been living a life half-lived. All that you've lacked in courage, all that you've lacked in dynamism, all that you've lacked in energy is merely a result of this repression. So forget all this, cut it at the root and go to your unknown hidden sources of being. And that only happens when you are ready to expand, ready to explode into the innermost core of yourself and the innermost core of existence itself. Don't fight with yourself. Don't be in a constant state of tension and strain within yourself. Enhance your ability to feel free. Feeling free is the means. Freedom is the means. And that is the whole crux of the Yoga Vasishtha. Freedom is the means for you to stop wasting your energy. We are unnecessarily wasting most of our energy in life upon what will happen tomorrow, what happened yesterday. Once you leave that behind, you free yourself from past and future. And in freeing yourself from past and future, though you stand completely vulnerable to the moment, you also stand open to all the possibilities that it offers. And then you live a very open life. You live a very noble life. You live a life as if the river can flow into the ocean and find its ultimate ecstasy, its ultimate potential realization. Your entire being becomes cleansed with this very vibe. That is the path towards enlightenment. That is what true Vedantic living is. It is intuitive. It is coming into contact with the higher sources of yourself which have been remained closed till now. It is a meeting with your authentic self. And that authentic self is not what you see on the surface. That authentic self is rooted in the highest reality of existence, the highest energy of existence itself. You're simply to bridge yourself to that. And bridging yourself to that means creating an expansion of consciousness. Our whole lives we suffer because we simply don't expand our consciousness. The expansion of consciousness is both the way and the means and the aim also of life. And we can do it every moment. Don't wait for it. If you decide to expand yourself at this very moment, you'll find that you are within yourself, have the capacity to be immensely blissful, immensely vast in proportions. Don't limit yourself by power and position in life. No, your consciousness deserves that you respect it, and respecting consciousness means that you allow yourself to see yourself as a being which does not have to grope in the light, in the darkness. See yourself as a being full of awareness, full of clarity, full of deeper understanding of the highest truths. And then you find that this very earth is a paradise. This very life is the means to higher living. That you are not ordinary, you are extraordinary. And when you realize yourself to be extraordinary, you jump out of the entire conditioning that you've been subject to. Remain alert to the highest possibilities within yourself. The highest possibilities are not the physiological possibilities. They are not even the psychological possibilities. They are the mystical possibilities. They are the spiritual possibilities. And that is the awareness which the Yoga Vasishtha is trying to teach us. The whole dialogue is one mainly between the sage Vasishtha and the boy Ram. Yes, the paragon of humanity according to the ancient texts. But he's just a boy during the Yoga Vasishtha, and he has this searching truth, this hunger for truth within him. And Yoga Vasishtha is supposed to be the ultimate text which satiates that hunger, which satiates that thirst of Ram. Because it doesn't just deal in metaphysics, it gives concrete examples from the world. It says that Ram is confused himself by not understanding that he is full of bliss within himself. He is looking only at life at an external point of view. Once he realizes that there is a spiritual life within which we are all bliss, we are all courage, we are all freedom, then all his imaginings, all his fears and apprehensions disappear, and he's filled with a great strength of energy. He's filled with a great feeling that he's dissolved into the universal oceans, and that all the galaxies, the planets, all the sun and the moon and the stars all share that same energy. So that feeling of oneness with the greater energy is really what this expansiveness leads to. And we are all capable of it. You see, whilst Vasishtha is speaking to Ram, but really, he is saying these invaluable lessons for all of us. Ram is a means. And in our collective consciousness, we are all in that same situation. We are all plagued with doubts. We are all plagued with apprehensions. You can see it in the Bhagavad Gita. There, Arjun is the protagonist. There, he is placed in a situation where his consciousness is confused. And eventually what Sri Krishna is doing is expand his consciousness. Expand it to such a degree that Arjun reaches this ecstasy of realization. And he is never the same. He forgets all about his conditioning and wakes up to his full might as a warrior. He realizes the inner richness of life. He was behaving on the battlefield as if he is completely helpless, completely forlorn, completely not the warrior he is. But by and by, during the course of the Bhagavad Gita, he is imbued with the rolling strength of the Lord. And he realizes that life, when perceived through an expanded consciousness, is full of possibilities, is full of possibilities to attain to a creative, higher state of being, to a state of being where we are harmoniously one with all things. We are not to function out of the mind. The mind is limited. Go beyond the mind. Therein lies true cheerfulness, true harmony, true realization of the symphony that is creation. And participation in that symphony as a witness of it is the greatest bliss and ecstasy in life. There is none higher. Our whole obsession with our possessiveness, our anger, our hatreds and so on have prevented us from seeing this higher consciousness of ourselves. The innermost qualities of nobility, love, understanding have all been smothered simply because we do not expand in consciousness. Our ability to attain to higher bliss is contaminated by the feeling that we are limited. Realize that in your inner core you are unlimited bliss, unlimited beauty, unlimited energy, and so doing you are able to move to a higher strength. You can do it in this very moment. There is no need to wait. The only challenge in life is how much you can expand your consciousness through whatever you're doing. It could be your work, it could be relationships, it could be meditation, it could be a walk amidst nature. It's all about expansiveness of consciousness, and that is the base of meditativeness. That is the base of bliss. That is the base of feeling a sense of self-worth and value in life. And it brings you to a state of non-excitement. It brings you to a state of inward stillness where you're able to see that through the mystic eye and through the mystic vision, you are indeed capable of the highest enlightenment. You are indeed capable of the highest contentment. All that you need to do is get rid of this psychological phenomenon, this facade that the web of thoughts has woven within you. Be egoless, dissolve yourself of all your conditioning and come to that central force within yourself, that central source of energy within yourself, which is absolutely unlimited. That is the whole basis of Vedanta. And Hindu wisdom is really telling you that you are a fathomless energy. There is no need to feel that you are less than that. There are no boundaries to what you can be. There are no boundaries to existence. And being a part of existence, you are perfectly as capable as the rishis, as capable as the Tirthankaras, and as capable as the Buddhas to let the highest truth enter your heart. Do not be oriented around the things of the world. Power and position and so on have their own place, but the quality of life can only be brought about by expansion of consciousness. Realize this immediately, and knowing it, feel happy. Knowing it, feel full of love. Knowing it, you are able to transform everything into a tremendous vibration of meditativeness, into a tremendous vibration of joy and energy and strength. Then only can you feel the ecstasy of life. You see, all of us are so restless because we are not able to expand ourselves beyond our immediate circumstances. But the way of the Vedantin is to be able to expand in every direction through the medium of consciousness. And doing so, you come upon the higher truth of self and the higher truth of existence, which imbues you with an undisturbed happiness. Most of our happinesses in life are disturbed. They are not spontaneous happinesses. They are dependent upon power and position and so on. Go for the ultimate spontaneous happiness, and that only happens through the meditative happiness, which comes about as a result of consciousness expansion. That is the only abiding thing in life. That makes you tremendously ecstatic. That makes you tremendously wise and liberated within yourself. And liberation is the ultimate aim and objective of Vedanta. You see, what the Yoga Vasishtha is saying is that you must liberate yourself from the sense of smallness. You must liberate yourself from the sense of body and mind. You must liberate yourself from the feeling of limitation. And when you do liberate yourself from the feeling of liberation, your entire life can be a continual dance of ecstasy. Your entire life can be a continual vibration of the highest strength and energy. Then you feel balance. You feel like you are one with with nature, with the mountains and the trees. You are utterly calm within yourself, and this very calmness is the greatest reward in life. It fills you with such a deep peace. You see, there is nothing greater than the idea of tranquility and calmness in Vedanta, and that is a byproduct of expansion of consciousness, which is at the very base of the Yoga Vasishtha Maharamayana.